And these are the guidelines. I hope you all read the article and find it interesting. Um, the mission statement is erase is the slogan of the group Erase, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings with of all colors with love and respect. Join us. Um, everybody will have a brief introduction to themselves, um, starting with myself. Um, raise your hand and one finger to get on the list, two fingers for clarifying question. Did you mean such and such, or what did you mean by the statement? Um, 2 minutes for each person on the list. At the roundup, if you haven't spoke, you have 2 minutes. Otherwise, you have 1 minute to speak at the end of the meeting. Turn all phones off. Um,
I think you mean mute yourself.
mute yourself when you're not speaking. Um, 15 minutes before the end of the meeting, we'll start the roundup statements. Um, okay, I think this is an atmosphere of safety, and we do not allow personal attacks. Um, okay, I think that covers everything. Why I chose this statement, this article. The reason I chose this article, there are too many good people are still uncomfortable about having the race discussion. Too many not so good people are too comfortable spreading their racist dialogue. No one race of, of people is totally racist, but too many are quiet and are afraid to speak out and don't want to feel the backlash or disapproval of family, friends, co-workers, and their community. Many don't know how to have the conversation or fearful they will be hurt. Are fearful they will hurt the person's feelings involved in the conversation. Being quiet is not the answer. I understand in some communities and environments, a person's safety will be an issue. Let me end my reason by why I chose this topic with um, this. When we speak of races, all people of one race is not racist. For example, when communicating, a white person did a racist act, that we mean that's we mean that we don't mean all whites are racist. Far from it. Not even 50, not 40%, not even 30% of all races are racist. The number and percentage is my belief. I have no documentations on the percent of any race. I do not believe all white people are racist. If they were, if they were changed, if they were changed, would not be possible. Other races are the race totally racist. I hope that was clear. Let the discussion begin. Hands.
Have to introduce ourselves.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Starting with Bill.
Lives, and I've been coming for maybe 4 years now. And Cindy and I will be here for the next 3 weeks, and then we're going to start traveling. But because of Zoom meetings, we will be able to attend, although the first 3 weeks, the first 3 Saturdays are travel days, so we can't do it. But starting July, we'll be able to attend via Zoom. Look forward to it.
Okay. And Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Moore. I've been coming since June of 2007.
Phyllis?
Good morning, I'm Phyllis. I've been attending since 2008 when I moved to New Orleans.
Marion?
I've been attending the race discussion since 1993. I believe I attended the first meeting, first discussion at the Broadmoor Library in 1993.
Cindy?
Good morning. Excuse me. I haven't been up long enough. Good morning, everybody. Cindy Morse. I've known of Erace for many years, but only been attending for about 3 or 4, somewhere in there. I find it very valuable. So thanks for including us.
You're welcome. Peter? Peter, unmute yourself.
I think this is about the 4th Eracism meeting I have attended. I am enjoying it. And as I've said before, I am Marva's next door neighbor.
Marla?
Hey, good morning. I'm Marla Burke, and I've been attending Erace meetings, I guess since this last summer. Happy to be here.
Pedro?
Hey, good morning. I've been attending the meetings since this past summer and really enjoy them for the information and the insights, and thanks for including me.
Lynetta?
Good morning. I've been a member of Erace since I was an intern for the organization.
Cheryl?
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. I've been coming since just before Katrina, then just joined at the beginning of last year. Oh, how long now, guys? I don't remember. The first of the year. And thank you for this incredible article. I'm going to share this with another group. It's so good. They're looking for like whatever they're going to call it, because they're a big group of white people that someone will come up with something and they're looking at appropriate ways to deal with it. And I think this could be a good list of agreements for them to make. So thank you, Marva. And I too will be traveling for the next few weeks, and I will see how I can join you if I can.
Good. Louise. Louise?
Louise put in the chat that she can't join because of her internet instability.
Okay. Glenn? Glenn?
Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to Erace since 1994, and I find it stimulating.
Mo?
Yes, I'm a Mal, been coming to the meetings since 1997 and never stopped coming.
Okay. Well, everyone introduce themselves and we can begin with the meeting. Phyllis? Anyone else? Okay. Marion? Start, Bill? Okay, Phyllis, start us off.
Well, I just have to disagree with you, Marva. Sorry, but I think all white people are racist in some way. In this country, at least. I don't know white people everywhere, but it's impossible because it's so ingrained and it's so subtle that we don't even realize it sometimes. You have to really study and be aware and know what to look for to see it in yourself and to point it out to others. So sorry, bad news.
Thank you, Phyllis. Okay, Marion?
I was looking at those.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, I was trying, evidently I wasn't hitting the pad hard enough. I was looking at number 6, consider your audience and goals. Well, just part of that. I thought about an Erace meeting we had at the library a few years ago. And it was during the presidency of number 45. And someone said something that didn't sit well with 2 of the white ladies, the older white ladies that sat there, and they said, "Oh, we didn't know you were gonna say something like that." And they jumped up from the table. I think some of you were there, and they said they weren't coming back because they didn't like the direction in which the discussion was going. And when someone made a comment, it wasn't a lie or any kind of degradation of the person's character. It's just that they said the president did such and such, and they were appalled that this person said something that they believed was not in alignment with what their beliefs were, considering, how they felt. So number 6 is consider audience and goals, but I was focusing on your audience. And as I said, the ladies never came back. They said they didn't know the discussion was going to be like that. And they really didn't give Erace a chance, because all of our discussions are not about maligning people. And what was said was the truth. It was a statement of fact. It was all over the internet, all over the TV news, and of the person, of number 45.
There has two clarifying questions, Glenn, and followed by Cheryl.
Excuse me, I raised up two fingers at first, then I put the two fingers down, put down one. You got me down on the list?
Okay, I'll add you to the list. Okay, we have Bill followed by,
Cheryl wanted to ask a question.
oh, Cheryl, you have a clarifying question.
Marianne, were the people that were speaking, were they of color that told the truth, or were they white? Just curious.
The person that told the truth was a person of color, and the two ladies that were upset were older white ladies.
Had the older white ladies been at a lot of your meetings already?
No, because I think I said in my comments that they said they were never coming back. They didn't know that's what discussions were going to be about. And I said they didn't give us a chance because we weren't about maligning people, or it wasn't going to be a consistent criticism of number 45. So they said they weren't going to come back, and they didn't.
Do you feel that you lost something very precious in that? Because do you feel that you really lost something? Were they just not aligned with the group? Because as we started this, it seemed like when Marva read the rules, one of the things is we have respect for each other, no matter where we all come from. And to me, that doesn't, they did not fit into the basic core of Erace.
I think something in a way was lost, and then maybe it wasn't, because it seemed to me their minds were made up, and they seemed to think this was a character assassination. So it was lost. You know,
Okay.
it's unfortunate, I think, that you don't want to hear somebody else's point of view. And as I said, we weren't maligning the person. It was a statement of fact.
Okay, moving right along. Bill and Marla and then Glenn. Okay, Bill, you have the floor.
I want to interject a little bit of humor at the start. Our 44th president, Barack Obama, was always Mr. Cool and the picture of diplomacy. But in his new book, and I'm quoting, he called Trump a corrupt motherfucker and a racist, sexist pig. And so that's speaking truth to power too. But anyway, I didn't want to take away from the article. I thought the steps were spot on. And when I used to, in my working life, I would do training programs for companies. And in order to convince them to buy our stuff, we had a similar step. We call it situation complication resolution. So we would all agree on a common goal. In this case, it was a business goal of the company. And then we would raise, well, here's a complication to reach that goal. And then work on a resolution to overcome that complication. And the same model that's in here should work. But I'm going to get back on the list because I want to make a longer point.
26 seconds left.
Well,
okay, you can get back on the list, Bill.
Yeah, I'd rather get back on the list because it's a longer point. But
okay.
But I applaud the methodology that's put forth in this article. Thank you for sharing it.
Marla?
Amal has his finger up to get on the list.
Thank you.
I think I really enjoyed this article. I think it's a great reminder of how to kind of open a conversation with people. about things where you have varying opinions, whether it's race or whatever. I follow this woman on Instagram. Her name is Marie Beecham, and I think she goes by Marie Beach on Instagram, but she talks a lot about catching herself at a point where she says, anytime she says, I can't fathom how any decent person would think otherwise, then she feels like that's where she has work to do. And she's a Black woman, and she just talks about broadening her understanding overall about different viewpoints. And I still think this is really hard, even in the face of conversations about are all white people racist and so forth, because I have been in kind of the company of all different types of people who, very clearly are like, no, all white people aren't racist. Like, this might be classist, or it might be this or that or the other, and you're not necessarily racist. And that's difficult, because I do agree with Phyllis. I think we all white folks have racism in us, and whether they are inherent biases or whether we're consciously believing that those things or those thoughts, we have it in us, and it's up to us to do that work and make those changes. So I don't know really where I was going with this comment, to tell you the truth, but I just, I think it raises interesting questions about listening to varying viewpoints. And instead of those folks at the meeting that you all were referring to who just stood up and left because they heard something they didn't like, what would it be like just to sit through the discomfort and hear from other people that you fully are thinking that you don't have anything in common with, or that you disagree with completely?
Thank you. We have on the list Glenn, Bill, Amal, Nancy, Peter. Did I miss anybody? Okay, Cindy. Glenn, you have the floor.
I think the problem of racism can be cured, because it's not something that naturally originates from a human being. It is something that is taught. And I think the most powerful weapon that we have against racism is religion. And also, the greatest instrument to begin the racism is religion. Religion was used to further white supremacy by putting the image in people's minds that the Son of God was a white man, all the prophets of God were white men, all the angels of God are white. And you have white people, even today, in this meeting, don't want to see that removed, because they see it in themselves. They see that they're looking at their image, and that's what they are proud of, looking at their image. And all religious people should work on separating the good in them from the corrupt that is. And that's my opinion.
Thank you, Glenn. We next have Bill.
I want to say that I completely agree with Glenn on this point. But the complication is that people have distorted religious teachings for evil ways. I really value the teachings of Jesus and the prophets in the Old Testament, but the Romans took Christianity and turned it into a tool for European supremacy. and misused it. And so if we can look beyond those things to the core teachings, then there's hope for common values. If people who claim to be Christians look with us at those common values. What did Jesus actually say? What did the prophets actually say? And not how Christianity's been misused. And so there's a possibility of common ground. And thanks, Glenn, for bringing it up. And Glenn shared with us a 2-hour documentary on Islam. And there's a lot of common ground between all the great religions. And we can look for that. We can find common ground with Muslims. We can find common ground with Hindus, Buddhists, everybody, if we look at those core values. So I still haven't made my other point because I got caught up with Glenn, but don't put me on the list yet. I want to hear some other people talk, but I will get back on the list eventually.
Okay. Thank you. I see you, Phyllis.
Marion too.
Marion. We have Amal, followed by Nancy, Peter, Cindy, Phyllis, and Marion. Okay, Amal, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was listening to what Glenn was saying about the image of the Son of God and the prophets, all being considered or painted or given to us as white people. And then he said that there are white people who don't want to see that image come down. In my lifetime, I found that there are black people who don't want to see that image come down either. The very image that a lot of those white people don't want to see come down. So we've all bought into the idea of white supremacy, and not wanting to see that image comes down is the proof that we've all bought into it. You know, when I read this article, I was thinking to myself, whoever wrote this article they took some talking points from racism, because a lot of what was being said in the article was some of the core values of what this group is about. And I was wondering if this person had either been to a meeting or read about our meetings in some way, form, or fashion, because a lot of those points that was being made are points that's been the mission statement, if you will, of racism since I've been coming. So I was wondering who this person was, when taking some of our talking points and making it into an article. But you know, one of the things that was interesting in the article is that, you know, the idea of conversation and getting people talking, because in conversation you get it affords you the opportunity to learn something about the person that you had not previously known. And when you learn and conversate with a person, it opens up the door for you to get rid of some of the barriers that you would not have known, about the person previously. So getting people talking and having conversations. I'm getting feedback on my voice. Did anybody else hear that?
Yes.
That's
I'm
me.
sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. So getting people talking and having conversations with each other, I think is one of the keys to us dismantling this concept or idea of white supremacy and racism. But if ain't nobody talking, nothing's going to happen.
Thank you, Amal.
Is that me?
Sorry, that was me. I'm trying to I'm trying something and it's not working very well. Sorry.
That's all right. We have on our list Nancy, Peter, Cindy, Phyllis, Marion. And you have the floor, Nancy.
I just wanted to say that, I do not, think all white people are racist. I have had the pleasure in the last 3 years or 3.5 years to work with people who I know do not have a racist bone in their body anywhere. I think people can have biases. Even I have biases about certain things due to the experiences that I have. I think people have predispositions about things. I think, like Marion said about the 2 women, I don't remember that meeting, so maybe I wasn't there for that one. If you have a predisposed disposition about something, there's nothing that anybody can say to you that's going to change their thought or their belief. You see that a lot of times in the military when people come into the military from areas of the country where they have not been exposed to diversity. They have preconceived notions about people, and it takes being in a close situation to have some effect on changing that. And sometimes they will tell you that. I never met a Black person, or I thought this and that about, Black people until I met you. I also wanted to say, piggybacking on what Glenn said about religion, Jesus was a person of color, given the region of the world that he came from. But God can be anybody. God can be any nationality, any race you want him or her to be. God is your higher power. God is your guiding light. And God can be in the image, or should be in the image of you. It is your better person. It is your higher calling and your higher spirit. So,
Thank you,
was
Nancy.
there a clarifying question? I thought I saw Glenn had 2 fingers.
Glenn? Oh, his picture is not on the board.
Yeah,
Do you have a clarifying question, Glenn?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I just have to unmute myself. When you say that, there are white people that don't have any racist bone in their body. If you that image carries a subliminal message that enters into your mind without you even knowing it. It enters into your mind without even you realizing its effect.
Are you asking me a question or are you making a statement?
Could they be affected by these images without their knowledge?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't have no way to even answer that. I really don't, because I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm finished.
All right. Thank you, Glenn and Nancy. We have Peter, followed by Cindy, Phyllis, Marion, and Bill. Anyone else want to get on the list? Oh, okay, Cheryl. Peter, you got the floor.
So I've heard the following definition of racism, that it is the act of attributing a single feature or a single characteristic to an entire group of people without any consideration of individual traits. So if we accept that as a definition, then any statement that begins with all blank people are ... becomes automatically a racist statement. I've heard it said twice now in the past since this meeting began, all white people are racist. According to that definition, that is intrinsically a racist statement. I think we need to look beyond accusing this or that group of being racist and look for the core of these issues, which I think lies in fear. Humans are fundamentally fearful people. And I think racism begins when one tribal group, in fact, when I was in college, when we discussed these sorts of issues in anthropology classes, the word was tribalism. I think racism begins with this phenomenon known as tribalism, where one group of people are intrinsically fearful of another group of people. And I think we need to look beyond to issues like that in order to get to the root of the racist problem.
Phyllis had a clarifying question.
So Peter, do you think that as a white person, I can be racist against other white people?
It depends on how you, in your mind, how you group people. I think it's entirely possible for Scottish people to be fearful of Englishmen and vice versa, which would make that a sort of racism. Yes, I think so. I think, racism is something not just about the color of a person's skin. It's about fear of cultural differences, fear of people that speak a different language. It can be all kinds of things. I think at the root of the problem is fear and uncertainty on the part of one group or one tribe, if you will, in the face of another tribe and vice versa. So I am very wary when I hear the statement, all fill in the blank are intrinsically fill in the blank, because that to me is the core definition of what racism is all about.
Okay, thank you, Peter and Phyllis. We have on the list Cindy, Phyllis, Marion, Bill, Cheryl, Nancy.
And me, please. Me being Louise, not Roy.
Okay.
You can put me on the list.
Okay, Cindy, you have the floor.
Good morning. Okay, I think that's right. The beginning statement of all white people are racist, I disagree with. I think we are, again, depends also if whether you're thinking by contact as a child growing up in North Carolina, fairly small town, almost rural. I was in a white world, but I was not aware of and did not do any what I see as racist actions. But certainly the society was racist. By the time I knew about it or realized what was going on, I was half grown. So the reality of how you're raised makes a difference. Now, once the civil rights movement started and I became more aware of the inequalities, my ideas became much more radical in terms of why are people acting that way? And I remember a number of discussions with family members, cousins who were racist, very overtly racist. They quit talking to me after that, which is okay with me. I don't need them in my life if they're going to be like that. But question two, the contact is essential. Until I was 10, the only African-American people I knew were caretakers. We had a babysitter who was wonderful, those kind of people, a cook at my grandmother's, but everything was segregated. So as a 10-year-old, I didn't have a lot of power to change that, except in my head, being aware. And it took a while for that to develop. It's no longer the case. We have lots of opportunities for actions, but again, the contact is essential. And that's easier now that schools are integrated, or at least many schools are. Certainly people choose schools that are not. But at least kids grow up with contact. And I think that makes a tremendous difference. Question is how long we want to tolerate those old norms, the old established norms that you interact with your same group. It's ridiculous. But some people still are in that place. Hopefully, that will diminish over time. I think it's come a long time, but also getting to be a long time. I have not seen those cousins that I grew up with that were very racist in the last 20 years. They live up in North Carolina and it's a long distance. I would be interested to know if they've changed their views a little. I don't know. And I may never find out, and I can live with that.
Okay. That was the bell. Thank you, Cindy. We have Phyllis, Marion, Bill, Cheryl, Nancy, Louise, then Glenn. Phyllis, you have the floor.
Well, I wanted to say that
And Amal.
white
Okay.
people can be racist against other white people in terms of, like, I was thinking Northern Ireland, where the Protestants and the Catholics, you know, basically look the same, but swear they can tell each other apart by physical attributes. But that's different than saying all white people in this country across the board have racist tendencies or racist DNA because it's in the country. I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and I know for sure that I did racist acts to other kids when I was growing up, and it was the North. I know that I asked kids, where are you really from? I know I asked kids, what's your American name? Which those are racist things to do, I know now, but that is something that I had to learn and overcome. I feel somewhat discouraged that the values, buying in values together will make an effect on people who are really entrenched in racism, because I don't know if anybody's read The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. I have not read it, but I want to, and I've heard her interviewed several times about it. Basically, one of the examples she gives of, it's basically, in my mind, why we can't have nice things in this country is because of racism. And in the 20s, I believe, communities around the country built public pools. This was during segregation. So of course the pools were only for white people. But they were built because it was considered to be a public health matter. It was for before air conditioning, where people could go in the summer to cool off, white people. When segregation happened, almost every place that had a public pool closed their pool rather than integrate it. So they took something away from their community that benefited it because they didn't want to share it with Black people. So this isn't just individual white people, this is the system. And also I want to say, I just started watching the HBO documentary by Raoul Peck, Exterminate All the Brutes. And I'm in the second episode. It is very honest and very well researched and deep. And I'll put that in the chat, Cindy. I see that. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. We have Marion, followed by Bill, Cheryl, Nancy, Louise, Glenn, Amal. You have the floor, Marion.
About, it's been more than 20 years. There was a supplemental magazine included in the Sunday Times Picayune called Dixie Roto. And one particular Sunday, there was an artist's rendition of what Jesus looked like. And inside the magazine, there was an article giving a written physical description of Jesus. On the cover, he had short curly hair and he was tan, and you could see it was just from the top of his head to his neck, something like a gold. The article of clothing that was depicted was sort of a gold color. Inside, in the written portion of the article, it said that Jesus was a short man. He may have been 5'6" or 5'8". That week following that article and the picture depicted on the cover, there were quite a few people from Metairie, and one guy's letter stood out. He said, well, if this is what Jesus looks like, I won't be giving my worship to him anymore.
Oh,
And
wow.
he had several other people who all, I mean, they were bent out of shape. So one of the more rational letters said, you have to remember the time period in which Jesus lived, and you have to remember how Jewish people were described in the Bible, especially Jewish men. And there were people that were accepting, who were writing their comments, they were accepting that Jesus was not 6'1" and had long brunette hair and blue eyes, that he had short curly hair and he was about 5'6", 5'7", 5'8". So I always remembered that, because when I was a little girl growing up in the Baptist church, and I'm still a Baptist, but I think I'm a liberal Baptist, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes if I hit a couple of seconds quickly. I didn't have a problem with Jesus being depicted with curly hair. Didn't bother me at all. So moving forward into the 21st century, year before last, I went to a mosque. There was this horrible criticism of people of the Islamic faith. So I said, I'm going to look into this for myself. I went to that mosque for 6 weeks, 6 Sundays. I'd go to my church and then I'd go to the mosque. I did not hear anything radical. Then the teacher was a woman who attended our Erace meetings in the past, she and her husband, and that's how I ended up going, because I knew Jenny and Anwar. And it was the most pleasant, one of the most pleasant experiences I've ever had in my life. They were welcoming. I felt comfortable. And I was so glad that, you had to take off your shoes as a sign of respect. And for those 6 Sundays that I went for the classes, all I heard was about peace and love, giving respect to your fellow man, giving honor and glory to God. And when I went back to my church, in the older adult, because I am an older person, in the senior, I'll say the senior Sunday school class, I told my classmates I had gone to the mosque for 6 Sundays, and there was some gasps, and I had to talk to several people.
Marion, the bell went off.
What?
The bell went off.
All right, I'll shut up. But I just wanted to say I had a positive experience, and I had to get a few people straight in the church after I told my story about going to the mosque for 6 weeks. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Marion. Let me ask you all, do you hear the alarm?
I didn't hear it.
Anyone?
I didn't hear it either.
Okay.
It's very,
I didn't hear
very
it,
hard to hear. It's very,
Okay.
it's like a very distant tinkle.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll do this as a sign.
You got to say something because not everybody's looking at you on the screen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We have Bill, followed by Cheryl, Nancy, Louise, Glenn, Amal. And it's 10:56. So I'm gonna see where we stand after Amal. Because I think that should be time for the wrap up. Okay. You have the floor, Bill.
Thank you. As I said, I think the methodology in this article and the steps are spot on. But the problem comes with the first step, lead with shared values. Half the country values are white nationalism, voter suppression of people of color, government control of women's bodies, easy access to guns. In some states, they're making even the discussion of racism illegal. What's happening in a number of states. So where are the common values? It's hard to think of. I know, and I'm not criticizing the methodology at all, because I think it's spot on. But we have to first find a common value to.
We all like ice cream.
Yeah, well, I want to leave it. Sometimes, when Betty White was a young person, she had a variety show, and she invited a black tap dancer to come to her show to perform. And after that, she got a lot of backlash from Southern viewers. And her response was, "I'm sorry, live with it." And sometimes you just have to take that position if you can't find a common ground. But searching for a common ground is a noble goal.
Cindy has a
clarifying
clarifying question. Cindy?
You have to unmute, Cindy. Cindy, you have to, there you go.
That our country has any shared values anymore. I think when I was a kid, there was emphasis on the good things our country can do for our citizens and even for the world. But somehow that seems to have evaporated. I find it very sad. So do we have common values anymore? I got no answers.
I am discouraged on the same issue because I just am appalled at what's happening in our country, and I'm appalled with what half of the people in our country believe and are doing, and I feel no sense of connection to them. But
okay. Okay, we gonna have to adhere to strict timing if we want to get everybody on the list. Cheryl, Nancy, Louise, Glenn, Amal, and if we have time for Peter, we'll address Peter's statement. Okay, the list is cut off at Amal, and I'll assess what time it is to let Peter speak. If not, Peter, you can address that and you'll wind up wrap up statement. Okay. Cheryl, you have the floor.
Okay, all over the place. You all have given me lots to think about. Bill, that was quite a list. I wouldn't even mind a copy of it, about the half of what everybody else's morals are. You did a good job there. I did want to say that racism is a word which includes the practice of creating race so that there can be money made. That's a word that was an economically made word. Colorism is another word, bias is another word, and prejudice is another word. And that's kind of to speak out to some of the things people have said, like when you say all those people, it can be one of those things. It doesn't necessarily have to be race. Race is about racism. I hope everybody's seen Jesus at Xavier. because there's the most beautiful picture of Christ I've ever seen with the woolen hair. And instead of being like this on the cross or this, he's like rising up. It's beautiful. Take some time and go into the cathedral there and see that. It's inspiring, makes you want to be Christian. You know, you're either a racist or you're anti-racist, I think, in this system. These are all my opinions, of course. Thank you for listening. If you support private schooling, you participate in racism because we're not demanding that things change. I was racist when I dated Black men and married Black men and wouldn't call the police at any time if anything happened because I was taught not to, because I participated. I should have changed the police department back then. And I did not. And that was trying to, you know, be supportive. But that, you know, like, wow. I believe in response to Phyllis starting this off, we participate, we support racism in our lifestyles and our systems. Until we speak up and demand a change, we will be in a racist society, and that will make us racist and participating in racism. And I guess you can be any color to support that system. I'd like to just quickly, if I can, there's a poem by Rumi, a great prophet, poet, and he says, someone says to God, why did you create this huge mess? What were you thinking? You're supposed to be supreme. And God says, or Allah, when I threw out my hand and created all of creation, I let everything roll out of my palm, all the beauty that was.
Thank you for sharing that, Cheryl. Unfortunately, the bell has rung. Nancy, followed by Louise, Glenn, and Amal.
Yeah,
Nancy,
I just wanted to say that I agree with Peter about racism having its roots in our fundamental fight, flight, fear, your basic instincts. And how would you be able to tell who is your friend and who is your foe if you don't get close enough to be able to talk to them or get to know them? The easiest way to tell who's your friend is by who they look like, what they look like. And so people band together by their commonalities, and it based around what they look like. And I've told this story before about going to Iceland and how Iceland wanted to make everyone think that this was strictly a blonde-haired, blue-eyed country. And that's not true. They have plenty of brunette people with brown eyes there. And they're treated like second class. Oh, they were. Now, this was 40 years ago, but they were treated like second class citizens and whatnot. So discrimination or racism can be based on different physical attributes, I guess is what I'm saying. And I also wanted to talk too about a little bit about white supremacy versus racism, okay? It has the same effect, but there's a subtle difference in a way between, because I know plenty of people who would swear to God that they're not racist, but they are in their thinking and their mindset white supremacists. They are the absolute supreme authority. Do not challenge them. You are not equal to me, okay? But I'm not a racist, but you are not equal to me. So there's a subtle difference there, okay? They're in charge. They know everything. You know nothing. You are to submit to them, to their opinion, their authority, everything. You are not their equal. So it's subtle, but it has the same effect, if that makes sense.
thank you, Nancy. We have Louise, followed by Glenn, Amal, and then we have time, we squeeze Peter in. Louise, you have the floor.
You can hear me okay?
Yes.
So I think there is many or at least more than one definition of racism. So might want to look at that. And I do agree that all whites are racist in the fact, Peter, that we all benefit from the racist society. And it does sound horrible. When I first heard it a few years ago, I was offended. It's like, oh, what? Moi? Racist? No way. You know, I'm a really decent person and I try to fight for what's right. But it's true. We have all benefited because we have white skin from the racist and white supremacist society and also in our silence of not speaking up, you know? So I don't think you should take offense or whatever it was to the fact that we are all racists, and just kind of understand where that came from. The microaggressions, as Phyllis was talking about, you know, we've all been guilty of it as well, or standing by and not saying anything when someone else does something, you know? So, yeah. God, there were so many points because it was a long way away. Darn it. I can't remember what else, but yeah.
Thank you, Louise. We have Glenn and Amal. Glenn, you have the floor.
Okay, you know, as I stated, you know, the problem of racism is going to be solved. It's going to take time. It's going to take understanding. The culture has changed in America. In around the world, the culture is changing. And the images has a lot to do with your mind that you have, the images. As a child, I seen no African-American policemen. I seen only white men could pick up the garbage in our neighborhood. They're the only ones could have that job. Nobody at City Hall were African-Americans. No mayors. No movie stars had roles that would make you proud of what you're looking at. You're seeing yourself as a buffoon all the time. So the culture in America is changing, and subliminal seduction is going on now, a different type of subliminal seduction, bypassing the conscious mind and going into the subconscious mind. We couldn't play professional sports. You had to be, you know, you had to be a white man. So all of these images are changing, and America is changing with these images. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. One more thing. We weren't even seen, we were invisible when it came to being in the military. We weren't in World War II. We weren't in the civil, we wasn't in the Civil War. We weren't in the War of Independence, but we were all in all those wars in America. But in history, we were invisible.
Thank you, Glenn. We have Amal.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So one of the things, I think his name was Peter, when he was giving his definition to racism, he left out a key component, and that key component is called power. And when you talk about racism, if you're not talking about the power dynamics, then you miss the whole component of what racism is. Because you cannot be a racist if you don't have power. The ability, in other words, the ability to exercise your prejudice against the people you hold it against. White supremacy is the idea. Racism is that idea in action. So if I believe it's one thing to just believe that all Black people should be hung from trees. It's another thing to be in a position to make that happen. So that is the key component that we miss when we have these discussions, is power. You have to have power in order to be racist. And in the United States of America, only white people have held that power. So now that gets into the idea of, are all white people racist? Yes, because if racism affects all Black people equally, then the idea of being a racist has to affect all white people equally. There's no such thing as being of saying that you have you have a racism and there are Black people who are exempt from it. No, Black racism affects all Black people equally, no matter what your social, economic, political, educational status is. All Black people are equally affected. Now the question becomes, is all white people racist? Yes, because you can't have a thing that affects all. The opposite end can affect all Black people equally, and the other end not affect all white people equally.
Thank you, Amal. Okay, Peter, I'm gonna have to cut you off at your tracks, in your tracks.
All right, cut me off. Cut me off whenever you want.
Okay.
Okay,
You have
so
the
let me just say in response to Amal and Roy Johnson, I don't think what you just said is inconsistent with what I said about a core definition or a core source of racism. You can still have suspicions about other groups of people, then at power, group has more power than the other group, and then you have a situation that we see in the United States today. So I don't think there's any inconsistency whatsoever in these various viewpoints of racism. And just one more thing, I would like to go back to what Bill Ives said the last time he was on. He had the mic, and I am sorry to say I am in full agreement with Bill's viewpoint, and I am terrified. I think the United States has entered an extremely dark era of our history. I would also, to his list, I would also add that we now have, I don't know, about half the population now in the United States have no more faith in democracy. They're not interested in democracy anymore. And that to me terrifies me to the bone, to the point where I'm considering getting the hell out of here while the getting out is good. I mean, that's what Marie and I have discussed now and then. Because I think we're headed to very, very dark times in our country. And thank you, Bill, for bringing that up.
Thank you all for your input. Who would have guessed so much discussion? And we ran out of time, and I think they should be a part B. Whoever want to take it up and add a second portion to this discussion. Thank everyone for the input. And we're going to start with the wrap up. And who haven't spoke? Pedro and Kate. And
Leonardo.
that's all. That's all.
Leonardo
That's
hasn't spoken.
Huh? Bill, what you're saying? Kate and Marla?
Leonardo hasn't spoken.
Oh, Leonetta has spoken.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Oh, Leonetta, did you not speak?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, I apologize. Kate, you have the floor for the wrap up. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, I just want to say that conversation, I think, is important because it's a give and take thing. You can hear a person's opinions and then also respond to it. I was at a disadvantage, I wanted to say, first of all, because I had some technical difficulties, so I entered the discussion late. But I know that a lot of times racism too is due to like, oh, I forgot the lady's name. She was saying that she wasn't exposed to African American people. And I think when the program Roots came on and exposed people to how the Africans or us, we were brought here to the United States, that it wasn't wild Africans just running around in the jungle. It was, engineers and healers and musicians and mothers, fathers, and sisters and brothers and so forth, that it kind of opened some people's eyes to what actually happened and who was brought here. And I just, because at one point they were saying that, I was hearing anyway, that it was a favor that people were brought here from Africa because it was an advantage to them because they were civilized. But anyway, I enjoyed the discussion, and I look forward to some more next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Leonetta, unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes.
I enjoyed the conversation. It went places that I didn't think it was, and I learned a lot from this discussion. Marva, you picked a wonderful topic.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion? Any announcements?
You have to let the rest of us do our wrap-ups.
Oh,
and then you do your wrap-up, and then we do the announcements.
okay. Oh, Bill.
I think I'm still, I don't know if I'm out of order here.
Oh, no, you Pedro, I apologize. You have not spoken.
So do I get 10 minutes?
No.
Hey, I want to point out just something real quick. First, I thought it was a brilliant article. Margaret, thank you. I think communication always trumps content. And so the way we communicate, the way we can communicate without initiating the defenses of other people starts a good conversation. I wanted to announce that I have Dr. William Darity. He's an African-American writer and outstanding resource that's going to be on this Monday on the radio show. It's celebrating Malcolm X's 96th birthday. I put the information in the chat for those that may be interested. I wanted to also indicate a couple things that came up for me during the discussion, and part of it is that, you know, racism is a prejudice on the basis of racial differences. Oppression is much more systematic, and one of its elements is racism. And I think what Amal said is important, that with oppression, the people that oppress are the people that have power, and the people that have power are the ones that have the inordinate wealth. They control media to a large extent by owning it. We've talked about that before and such. And I think culture is huge. So in our culture, I kind of found there was a difference between, or is there a difference between the fact that I may benefit as a white person because of the oppression of others at a higher proportional rate than am I in fact a racist because of that? And I think there's some credence to that. But Malcolm, when he was in visiting the Mecca in his latest and last reflections about the faith of Islam, had great faith that not all cultures are like that. And his experience for the first time was to be around people that were not racist, that where race was an incidental type of deal and not in any way a defining deal. So the culture we're brought up with has, as Glenn said, all sorts of unconscious influences and those types of things that I do think create racist tendencies that we need to try to check at the door, but I really appreciate the article very, very, very much. So thanks.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for their input. And like I said, there should be a part two. Because
Marva, you ain't finished the
Ma, but
list
not
yet.
everybody has gone yet.
oh, I'm just about to get this going. Okay. Did I leave off?
Everybody.
Oh,
Everybody but Pedro and
Kate,
that's what the
Leonetta and Kate. The rest
yeah.
of
The
us.
1 minute discussions.
I don't need to say anything more. I'm done.
Bill.
Okay. First of all, I agree with Marva, because we didn't get into the details. We did the larger issues. I will also commend Amal, once again, really articulates the essence of issues, and having the power component is a critical one. Cindy and I are also appalled at what's going on in this country. And we often talk about leaving, but the thing that prevents us is all our friends and family here. And we feel like it would be the ultimate expression of white privilege for us to just flee. And so I think that we will likely stick it out and see what we can do to try to make this a better place. Thanks for the article. It was great. And it bears more discussion from my perspective.
Phyllis? Thank you, Bill.
I want to say the part of this I'm sorry we didn't get to was the decentering whiteness part. I think that could be a whole discussion, because that's a really, it's one of those things, you're enmeshed in whiteness being the center of everything, and you have to really open your eyes and, you know, look and speak out against it. I enjoyed this conversation. Sorry, I still hold to my initial statement that all white people are racist. I'm like, prove me wrong. Find me one who isn't. Thank you. And I'm going to throw the announcement in right now in case people leave early. We're not meeting next week because of Memorial Day weekend, but we're meeting the week after that, which is June 5th. Thank you, Marva.
Thank you, Phyllis. Marion? Marion?
I'm trying to unmute. I don't know what it is. This computer has a mind of its own. Marvin, thank you for this excellent article. I wrote down the points in my erase notebook, and I'm going to make sure I put a big asterisk on the cover of the notebook so I won't get rid of it. I keep going back in time, but as you all know, I joined the organization in '93, and I wrote down my own definition of racism before I consulted Webster's, and it says, it's not a long drawn out thing. Racism is a belief of superiority that directs actions of psychological and physical harm toward persons believed to be inferior because of skin color, ethnicity, or religion. Racism is rooted in bias, prejudice, and stereotype. I think I wrote this definition about 20 years ago, and I kept it, the paper's yellow. That's how long I've had it.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you.
Cindy?
I think I got it right this time. One of the dilemmas with this whole discussion for me, I grew up in a small white town, a small southern town with a lot of Black contact, but always in a different role. So it's long overdue for us to get past that in whatever way we can, So I haven't been back to that town. I haven't visited those cousins, and I probably won't, just because they're not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with them, and they're not comfortable with me. So new connections in a more cosmopolitan place, although I don't think that's really a cause. Contact across racial lines, across language lines, across ethnicity, I think it enriches all of us. So hopefully we can find ways to do that in our everyday lives. I had the wonderful reality of teaching in a school that was very much mixed with all kinds of international kids, as well as about, I don't know the numbers anymore because I'm outdated. It was valuable to hear the perspective of a lot of the parents and to share the direction of the school, you know, choosing, making
Thank
it
you.
one of it. I know that's time. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Peter? Okay. Pedro?
I pass.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
I've already had my 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Cheryl?
Thank you for this, because I will be sharing this with a group of people that try to raise consciousness for 2,000 people all across the country. So I thank you very much for this article. My relatives came here in 1638. And if I leave and go somewhere else, I'll be a colonist just like them. So I'm going to try to stick it out. But Peter, I might join you. Who knows? I'm watching a show called Underground Railroad on, I think it's Netflix, which is quite interesting. And I love that you all share things with me. And Justice and Beyond, if you go to their website or their Facebook page, you'll see that there's a rally for Palestine tomorrow. I believe it's at 12. Thank you guys. I like spending time with you.
Okay, thank you. Nancy?
Oh, very interesting discussion. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Nancy. Marla?
Yeah, awesome discussion. I think the biggest challenge for me personally is, continuing to recognize biases that I have, whether I'm consciously aware of them or not. And as far as other human beings go and the country not having shared values, I continue to feel very alarmed by this growing trend of look out for your own and don't worry what anybody else is doing kind of mentality, which I just find terrifying and disheartening all of the time, every day, in small acts, as how people drive and how they talk to each other in public settings, or, how they don't yield in the grocery store to each other, just showing people general grace and meeting people where they are, I think is paramount, no matter who you are. So thanks for the discussion. It was awesome.
Thank you, Marla. Glenn?
There's a reason that God say in scripture, do not make any graven images of him. There's a good reason for that. And for Black people who are now putting up Black images of Christ for an answer to racism, you are violating what God said, putting up an image of God. We don't have no true images of any of the prophets of God. We don't have any true images of it. I like to say this about a movie I seen a long time ago about Samuel Jackson, A Time to Die, I believe the name of it was. And he had a lawyer who thought he wasn't a racist. And Samuel Jackson said, "You're my secret weapon because you are one of them." That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Glenn. Amal?
Yeah. Wow. Great article. like I said, the white and until we understand what white supremacy and racism is, we're gonna be talking in circles with one another. You cannot have a conversation about racism leaving out the power dynamic, because that is the key component of how this system works in terms of how it affects people. I ain't talking about something as a good talking point. I'm talking about something live and in action. Power plus prejudice equals racism. And if you don't, and if you ain't got no power, then you just prejudice. But I highly recommend that what Phyllis talk about, Exterminate All Brutes. It is, I highly recommend it. It's the same guy who did I Am Not Your Negro, which is a documentary about James Baldwin, did this same documentary. And it's a 4-part series. Highly recommended.
Thank you. I'm going to pass my wrap up and go straight to the announcements. Marion, you're muted. Marion, you're muted.
All right, I don't know what it is with this computer this morning. I wanted to make all of you aware and to spread the word that we have t-shirts that have the racism logo across the front, and we have pastel shirts for the ladies, pink and green. The white t-shirt with the logo across the front is unisex, and we have bumper stickers, adhesive and magnetic. And go to the eracismneworleans.org site if you would like it. It would help spread the word that there are people in our society that are in opposition to racism, since our country seems to be on a downward spiral. I have been wearing my racism t-shirts to the park when I go walking, and I've got a lot of positive feedback. And 3 or 4 people even told me they were going to order some. They were strangers, but they were very positive. It was a mixture of white and Black people. So if you all would consider that, it would be greatly appreciated by the Erace organization, of which you are all participants in. So I package them and Glenn mails them. So think about that. It would be very well worth your while, and you might get some negative feedback, but I wear it. My mother used to tell me, don't wear those shirts, are you going to get attacked? And I said, I'm wearing the shirt, I'm going to wear it, and I do. So lately, for the past 3 or 4 months, I've been wearing the shirt every time I go to the park, and I get positive feedback. So consider that, everyone. It would greatly be appreciated.
Can I make an announcement? If I could, thanks. First off, Marion, I don't know if you can just in the general email to all the Erace people like myself that I received, can you get that that website included in there? I certainly would like a shirt for sure. My announcement, and I hope it's not self-serving by announcing these radio shows but this one particularly, this guy, Dr. William Darity, he's a monster resource of ours, and he's really, really worthy of checking into. And if you want to learn a little bit more, and I'm sure most of y'all are very, very familiar with Malcolm X and stuff, but it's going to be a good show. I know it's just a good show because it's been pre-taped, so we've already completed it, and wanted to invite you to check it out. Again, it's in the chat information if you'd like to. Thanks for a great meeting. I'm going to miss not seeing y'all next week. See you in 2 weeks.
Hey, Drew, is that Central Time that you listed that at, or is that Mountain Time?
It's Central Time, so it's 6 to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.